In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a lift kit on your Jeep Cherokee.
Don't forget to check out the clip at the end of the video for more information on the channel. But in case you don't get a chance to, let me know your feelings. Share it on the video. That means liking, disliking, commenting, and subscribing. Let me know what you think, and that also helps the channel grow too. Alright, so what do you need to get this job done? Well, you need a jack, at least one jack stand. 2 is good, then you can do the whole rear axle, front axle, or 4 if you want to do all 4 wheels. Good time to rotate your tires at the same time too. A dead blow hammer or a mallet of some sort, a torque wrench with a range of 60 foot-pounds to 130 foot-pounds at least, a pry bar, a 5mm Allen key, a variety of sockets. We have here a 13/16 socket, 19mm, this is to take off your lug nuts, 7/8. This is an E14, this is a special Torx bit. 5/8, 18mm, 11/16, some ratchets, a bunch of extensions, various extensions, longer the better. You'll see why you'll need them. Flathead, either something to punch out or a long screwdriver like this. Pry bar, I mean the other pry bar here will work, but a thinner, almost rod style one like this will work. Some wrenches, and that includes a 13/16 wrench, 18mm wrench, 15mm wrench. These are both 15s, but this is just the ratchet style one. Some grease, wheel chalk, measuring tape, a drill, the drill bit, and a impact gun or something to take off your wheels. Oh yeah, and this is a 15-30-second drill bit. I forgot to mention that. First, as always, make sure the car is jacked up, supported correctly with jack stands. You'll be working on suspension components and everything, so you want to make sure you're safe. So I have 2 jacks here, but you really only need 1. Once you're supporting the jack stands, you're good. To point out, make sure, because you are putting a 2-inch lift on here, or any lift, I mean, it's obviously covering the rough country one, but you know, if you're putting any lift kit on, you do want to make sure that your jack and jack stands have the range to kind of go up, and you know, because you know, you may lift the car, the wheel's clear, you put the lift kit in, and then all of a sudden now you don't have equipment that raises high enough to actually get your wheels back on. So you want to make sure you have, you know, proper equipment to support that. Focus on the rear first. The rear is the easier of the two, only because it's much more simpler in how to do the rear. So for the rear, you have to take off the stabilizer link bolt, and then you have to take off the control arm bolt, which is down right here. That's it. Once you do that, I mean, I'll show you the process, a little bit more to it, but that's all you really need to do to kind of drop this down and get to the spring so you can install the rear isolator. All right, so first we're going to take off the stabilizer link, which is right here. For that, you need the Allen key, and you need a 15mm wrench. So I'm going to be using a ratcheting wrench. It'll just make life a little bit easier. So I'll put that on first. And I'll put the Allen key on. Now it is a little bit tricky to do because of course the spring is right there, right in the way. Of course, it's going to be a little bit easier than that, but that's okay. So you're going to go, and now these are not terribly tight, so you should be able to crack it just by hand. So you'll see once you start moving it, so once you loosen it's fine, when you move it, the Allen key, whoops, will start moving. That's what you need the Allen key for, to keep the threaded piece of the stabilizer link in place, so you can actually take out that that nut. Also, I should point out it is a little bit on the shallow side, the where the Allen key goes, so not exactly the easiest. So it's kind of awkward to do. I'm not sure. You guys seen it there like that? Try and do it best as I can, but you see I'm holding it there. Here, then you should be able to just there you go. That's out. You can just take the stabilizer link and push it right out. Next up, we are going to do this bolt down here. It's the lower control arm bolt. It's one here, and there's a nut There it is. See, right there. So that's what you need. First, you got to raise this up. Then you put your 18mm socket here, wrench here, and just go with it. It's there. It's normally tightened to about 65 foot-pounds. I actually saw a range when I was looking up the specs on this. It said 60 to 70 foot-pounds, and I'm not sure why there's a range. So I just said, okay, happy medium, 65. So it's around that though. So again, you should be able to do this by hand. And this is where it does get a little tricky because you do have to raise it up. Now it does say to raise by the control arm here. But if you raise by the control arm, it still keeps a little bit of pressure on the knuckle. So I'm going to actually raise it by the knuckle. But sometimes you got to kind of work between the two. And that's where you got to use sometimes a punch or something like that, or that screwdriver you saw to help punch out the bolt after. If everything goes smoothly, it should just come out. But you know, especially when suspension or brakes or anything doesn't always go like that. The reason also that you're raising this up, in case you're wondering why you have to, is because you are doing exactly that. You're trying to take pressure off this bolt to get it out. Right now, it's got load on it from the control arm and the weight of the suspension. So if you just try and loosen it here, it's all that pressure's putting on it. You're not going to get that out. So you got to get the pressure off. Also, putting a block of wood here does help too, if you so wish. Okay. Just gonna sit up more. I can put a little weight on it. Now I'm gonna stop for a second. Just gonna show you guys what's happening here. So you can see it's on there, and then on this side, you see the wrench is on there, holding that, right? Okay, I just want to reset the camera there, onward. There you go. Bolt, nut. Now to point out, if you don't raise the, raise it by the control arm, whoops, then it still puts pressure on here. See how easy that came out? That's because I'm raising by the knuckle, not the control arm itself. From here now, you're just going to lower it down nice and slow. This is going to release this and allow you to pull the spring right out. Let me just zoom back up there. All right. So I'll drop this down and pull that right out. So just do it nice and slow. You're also going to see this shift as you release. And note that shift. I don't know if you see it there. It's moved off to the side. It's no longer aligned because that is a tricky part with reinstallation. Not too tricky, but you know. But now you should be able to just push down on the control, on the spring on the control arm. See that up here? Push down, right out. Now let's go down here and just pull that right off that. Rotate it around, and your spring's out. All right, so now this is the bottom. So this is the side that sits at the bottom of the suspension. This is goes up the top. So this is the bottom. You'll see there's a little guide here, right? So if you just put this on, this is what goes over it. Right? You no longer get access to that guide. That's why you got to take, you'll get these two little screws here, and you don't have to screw it in, you just got to push it in. It'll act as the new guide. Push it as far as you can go. Don't have to force it, but make sure it's good in there, nice and firm. Then you take this, and drop it on, it becomes a new guide, see? Now, just as a little tip, not a big deal or anything like that, but if you noticed here, you know, it got some dirt, got some buildup, and you see that there in the control arm, the lower control arm as well. I mean, if you want to, it doesn't hurt to clean up, so you just get a bit of a smoother kind of surface. See, like that. I mean, these cars, especially if you got a Jeep and you're putting this in, chances are you'll probably use it on dirt, and it really is not a huge deal, but hey. Oops. There we go. Doesn't hurt, right? Now you're ready to put it back in. It's just that easy. The next step is just the reverse. It really is that easy to do the rear. So that screw that I put in, there's a guide hole right there. See it? Right there. So that's where that screw guides the spring back into. It's a nice little addition there. So take this, make sure this is aligned nice and even, and you bring that in right on top. And you can work the control arm a bit. It is flexible like that. And you want to make sure that guide screw goes right back in. There. This, oh, actually let me do this first. Let's put that, you see that there at the top? So I push down on the control arm, push that in, and it's in. If all is well, then down here, this should be nice and flush. You'll see this is lifted off, and that's okay. But the actual isolator over here, this the lift piece, that should actually be nice and flush. If it's off, then the guide pin hasn't gone through the hole. So be looking for that. Now it's just a matter of lifting it back up. This part is sort of tricky to do, and for the rear, it's probably the trickiest part of it, because, as you can see, once the control arm is released from the knuckle, that's where the knuckle is. That's where the control arm sits. So it's off, right? So as I jack up, I'm going to be pulling it. It does take a good, not a lot, but you can see it does take a decent amount of pull to get it over there. Again, there's a lot of flexibility to work with in the control arm. However, as you jack up, you'll have to work it around. And you may even need to use a pry bar or a really long screwdriver or even a hammer to kind of work it around a little bit. We will see it as we go. I mean, if I encounter issues, I'll show you those issues as well, because you may encounter those very same issues. All right, so I'm going to start by jacking it up here while I'm pulling it. Now it helps with the jack has wheels, because you can even use the jack to roll it and adjust as needed. Actually, I'm going to change angle because I'm working right here. I'm just going to change the angle. All right. Hopefully you get an idea here of what I'm working with. See, now this here has some flex with it, right? This moves. So that's kind of a tricky part to work with. Because as you lift, right now, for example, as I lift, the back part of the control arm over here is pushing it down, creating a misalignment. It's a bit tricky to work with at first, but I'm gonna, for example, get my long screwdriver here. I'm gonna wedge it in and kind of pull it forward. And work it around a little bit. Okay. You don't want to try and force it, okay? Everything will align at some point. It's just a matter of getting the alignment right. You guys still seeing that? Good. So you see I'm lifting, it's kind of starting to align. And of course, watch your fingers. Now I'm going to take the screwdriver. This is where having a screwdriver versus a pry bar is good. I'm just going to give it a couple taps. Pull it up, and just tap through. Right? I'm going to take the bolt, put it through, give it a couple taps. But again, don't force it, don't damage it, right? You can see it's just a matter of alignment. It's actually really easy to get the bolt in once it's aligned. It's just aligning. And it's actually going to be two alignments, because first you got to align this side, and then when you get it through, remember, because this has flex in it, you know, and you may need to align the other side too. I give it a couple taps. Okay, so good. Now you see, if I tap it here, and it's light taps, I'm not hammering it like crazy. For the hammer, let me check the alignment. Oh no, it's slightly off. There, a few taps of the hammer. Go, get my screwdriver out. And you're in, right? All good. So now I'm going to put the nut on the other side and just thread it on. Now, as I told you, this goes to about 65 foot-pounds. So we put a ratchet on, a wrench. Okay, we'll leave that for a moment. All right, so I've got my torque wrench. It's on here now. See, I'll have the wrench on the other side. So we'll torque it. Good to go. Now you're gonna drop this down because the last thing I do is obviously put back on that stabilizer link that is hidden behind there. No, over there. So let's just drop the suspension down nice and slow. Zoom that back out. If all goes well, should be all more or less lined up with your stabilizer link. This does change where your stabilizer link is, not the link, sorry, the link lines up fine as you can see here, but it changes where that Allen key is, making things a little trickier. So what I'll really first do is I'll put the bolt on and thread it slightly. So we'll just thread it on by hand first, as tight as you can go by hand. Right. Now you can do a couple of things here. Once this is all on, I mean, technically you should try and tighten this with the load as it is right now. But if you want to raise the control arm slightly to get better access, you can, or you can just work with it like how I'm working here. So we're gonna take our 15 millimeter. You do my wrench, obviously, just a regular wrench is a little harder, but having a ratchet wrench does help. I'm gonna try and I'm tightening it. Of course, as I tighten, it's starting to pull on this here, so I'm applying pressure. And there's no real, I couldn't find any real torque spec on this. It seems like it's just, I'm going to go with hand tight plus another half turn. So that's about hand tight. I shall go hand tight and a quarter turn. Now getting this out's a little tricky. You just got to work it around. You remember, you do have play here, right? This does move around and everything. So move it around and get it out. And then, believe it or not, your rear is done. You put on your wheels. 100 foot-pounds is what the lug nut specs are. So you put on your wheels, tighten everything up, and you're good to go. Okay, now we're going to move on to the front. The front is a trickier beast than the rear because on the surface, it should be just as easy. Where you're going to get in problems though is over here. Now, fundamentally, it's the same taking everything apart. You're taking off your stabilizer link up here, taking out the bolt that's in the back here, taking off the two brake lines, and then you got to drop this down enough space to fit in the lift kit, the pieces, and then you put everything back together, do some drilling, and you're all set. This though does give you some issues, but we'll get to that eventually. For now, let's just move on to the stabilizer link. So just like the rear, same idea, just a 5mm Allen key and a 15mm wrench. Because you don't have springs in the way, it's even easier to deal with. So now it's just a matter of loosening it up. So we'll first put the wrench on. Again, ratcheting a wrench does certainly help. Okay. Okay. There you go. Take the Allen key out. You can see it's it there. You just push your stabilizer link out. Alright, I'm making this video because instructions for this car are way different than what actually need to be done. And I just wanted to show just in case anything comes up. So as per the instructions, if you look over here, it clearly says passenger inner, driver inner, passenger outer, driver outer. So based on that, if you were to look at it, that would be the passenger outer. See the curve here? So you can see this curves around, so it curves on the outside just like this. It's got the hook here and this here. The same token, that should be the passenger inner. As you can see, the passenger inner curves, as you can see, it curves outward. So just like that, curves outward. And you can see this has that lip that curves up. However, if that's the case, this wouldn't work because per the instructions, this has to go around this bracket right over here. This is the passenger side of the car, you can see. On the passenger side. And that doesn't line up, right? So I've installed it, I've reversed it, and put the driver inner and the driver outer. And this lines up perfectly, because even if you put this, so say this is supposed to be the passenger outer, this one here. Remember, this installs like this. Doesn't line up to the brake line or anything, right? You see? This is supposed to be for the brake hose, and the ABS is on this side. So everything's reversed. So that took some figuring out to do, because I wanted to make sure 100% I was getting this right. Like, no, this is what the instruction says, but obviously that doesn't match up. Now it's installed. Also, a lot of the sizes they put in here, for example, if you look here, for this bolt at the back they have to drill through and put in here, it says you have to use 5/8 socket and wrench. But if you look, so this is the bolt, and you can see 5/8, and that fits. However, it says, remember, it says use socket and wrench, indicating that both the nut and bolt are 5/8. However, doesn't fit. Is actually (11/16). This is not the first either. With this one here, it's the same thing. It's different sizes for here and here, which is, instructions don't indicate. You can see the different sizes. The nuts are bigger sizes. So there was some complications. Also, these original factory kind of where this line goes, they're very thin. See the metal? Very, very thin. Whereas these are very thick. So getting them on there has been a giant pain in the ass. We're going to go ahead and take out this back bolt here. I've already taken off this line. Normally you can do that right here. It's attached to the back. You just pull that right off. You can even take off the brake line here as well. Just pull that right out. Now on this side, it uses what's called E14 bit. You saw that there. Now on this side it's 18 millimeter. So we just go in with one. I have some short extensions on. Oops. These things happen, right? Okay, that's one there. One there. Give this side a go. And luckily with this one, unlike the rear, it will come out nice and easy. You will not be reusing this bolt. There is a one that's supplied, a brand new one. Won't be surprised using that. Let me show you and get you an idea of what you're looking at here. Now first, you got to apply some grease. I've already applied grease in here, and you will have to put some around here. That's just to help get it on there and so it slides on. You want to make sure that you're greasing on the inside, you're greasing along the edge. Maybe put a little bit along here as well. And do the same for both pieces. Now this is the rear piece. This is the driver's side, by the way. So the idea is this has to sit in the back with this raised. So this gap has to be enough to fit this. It's about 1 5/8. That's why you need a measuring tape to measure. I got so fed up with it, I didn't bother measuring anymore. I just basically wrenched this down until this can fit, and there you go. Now, when you're also bringing this down, this has to fit, so this bolt, this opening here, matches up to this right here. This won't match up to anything. This will just mount onto the other side, but this has to match up to here. All right, so now before we start installing anything, though, we do have to get some grease around here. So I'll just take some grease on my finger, and I'm gonna apply some pressure on here. Oops. Oh, hey, if it stays, that'd be great. The other side didn't stay. It gave me a lot of problems, actually. It's supposed to. I mean, the way the instructions are labeled, it sounds like it's supposed to stay, but it did not. Not at all. So get some grease around there. Now, when you're installing this, this has to curve around here and get in front of this. So it can't be, it's not going to be behind like that. It's got to be through and in front. Okay, we do need to get a little bit more. So now you're going to see the wonderful struggles I had with this. First. Now, hey, if there's anyone here who had any other suggestions or anything that to make this happen, by all means put it in there. Anyone could help the Nexus auto community, the better. So this is just unfortunately what I had to do working with what came up. So I'm going to, let's get that other side there. Okay, so what I had to do to get the first, and this basically now holds it. Once I get the rear bracket in, you can see it's not lined up yet, but you can see now it's here, and it's essentially acting as a brace, and that holds it so I can get to this side. So I used this side, pushed it up so I can get the rear bracket in. Now it's in. It's not all the way in, but it's in. And now, and make sure of course you have your brackets ready. Now I'm going to reverse the crowbar onto the other side using this as my holding point. You saw what I did there, and I'm going to go on this side, brace it, push it up enough, hopefully that we can fit that front piece in. Be cautious. I know sometimes you may be engaged to want to go like this, but you do that, you're going to bend that. So be careful, you know, don't go like this. You don't want to put pressure onto the caliper. You know, you don't want to go like this, try and put pressure on the tie rod. Use only this as your anchor point. Okay. Now, this is where I had to get a little bit creative, because see this lip here? It's not a lip in the back. So when you try and put this on, see, it still doesn't fit because of that front lip. But you can't get the crowbar here and take care of all that. What do you do? Well, what I came up with is when I put the crowbar in and I lift here up, I'll take a flathead and wedge it right in here. And please be careful when doing this, because you don't want it to pitch out, hit you in the face, or wear safety glasses if you need to. Whatever you gotta do, be safe. But that's what I did, and I wedged it. So that created enough of this being low enough I can get the front in. So let's go ahead and give that a go. Like that, for example. Okay, let me move the camera, because the camera is actually where I need to have the actual leverage. Let's go here. There we go. Get my flathead ready. All right, so luckily, I didn't actually have to do that on this side. And I will tell you that is interesting because on the other side, the passenger side, I did have to. This side looks like it cooperated a lot more. Now, if all goes well, and that's all together now, first you got to put these together. They have to be touching, but when you do it by hand, it's not going to happen, right? It's only when you bolt everything together, then it starts touching. What you want to make sure, though, is that this opening here and these here do align, right? That's your main goal. Once you get that, you put the first bolt in, lead that in, and it's going to be tight at first. And you put the second one in, and then you tighten it up. So that's kind of the trick. All right, so first we'll put the first bolt through here. All right. And then put a washer, all supplied. Oop, wrong washer. There you go. And we put the nylon nut. And you're only going to be able to go hand tight, like up to here, because with these nylon threads in here, you can't go by hand. You need the tools for that. Same time, I'm going to put the other one through. Oh, I should tell you. So this side is just a washer on this side. No washer on this side. On this side, you do have to put a washer. Put that through. Another washer. And then again, the nylon nut. Ooh, don't you go anywhere. All right, now all this is here, the bolts are there. You can go ahead and make sure the suspension is nice and straight because it will move as you do it. Okay, so now the nut itself is 13/16. See that there? And the nut is 7/8. So you can use, you'll need a wrench either way for the back when you have to torque them up, and that's a whole other fun situation. But for now, we're just going to be tightening it. For that, I'll use 2 ratchets. Make my life a little easier. However, again, if you don't have 2 ratchets, you just have the wrench. That'll work as well. Okay, set. We'll just put that one over there. You're not going to be torquing these up completely yet. You want to do one side, make sure it's nice and flush and tight essentially. And then you do the other side, and then you'll tighten them up. Okay, that's good. Take that off. Move to the other side. Okay. Put that on there. Move the stabilizer link side. Alright, get that off of there. Now, before you go ahead and you tighten everything up, you want to be looking at the brackets, both sides. Let's see if we get closer. You want to make sure they're completely touching, no gaps whatsoever. Now here, for example, there's a gap. It's not really a gap, it's because this part of the bracket's a little lower than that side, but everything is aligned. Right? So you just want to make sure everything's aligned correctly, especially looking in here and in there, and making sure those are aligned because these have to be flush, completely flush all the way around. So, and again, look around the bottom and make sure it's flush against the knuckle over here, and then you're all set to tighten. Now these, this is hard. You may need another person for it. I found it hard even myself. These go to 130 foot-pounds. However, it is hard to torque to 130 foot-pounds if you need to also hold a wrench, because if you try and torque this to 130 foot-pounds, the back here just starts spinning. So you got to be able to hold with one side and apply 130 foot-pounds with your torque wrench on the other. That is one of the most difficult things. I'm going to do it, but it is a pain in the ass. Better if you have someone who can hold like a wrench, the wrench over here, while you torque. That makes life a lot easier. So you may want another person to help you with that. Now, witness the struggle. All right, we'll start off with this side here. Wrench on. Torque wrench set to 130 foot-pounds. I've got a longer extension because my torque wrench is very long. If you have a short one, great, but mine doesn't fit in the wheel well. So I've got an extra long extension on there. Example right here. Let's see if you can see it. Like if I let the wrench keep going, it's gonna make contact up here. And then, you know, you could bend, this is where the brake line is, you could bend that or damage it. So you gotta apply equal pressure around, you know. There we go, finally. You wanna see the other side too, or are you gonna be good? I'm gonna do the other side. You're gonna see it, because you need to know. It ain't easy. 130 foot-pounds on your own. Trying to apply opposing force. Not the easiest thing. Oh. And for example, this is what you want to avoid. Don't want that to make contact with your tie rod down here. So another thing you can do is either if you get a ratchet and a long bar and attach it on there, attach a breaker bar, anything like that. But I think having two people is definitely ideal. Let's switch up the ratchet. See. Give myself more leverage that way. Almost there. My guess is sitting around 120 or so foot-pounds. I'm trying to avoid it in that tie rod. I'm going to try and use the control arm as my leverage point here. Now again, I'm strongly advising get someone to help you with this. There we go. I'll see, it's almost there. All right, so now these are all nice and torqued up. You can just put these on. Now the problem I have with these is that these are much thicker than the factory ones, right? So getting them on, not the easiest, but can be done. You just got to kind of work it around. You can see how thick, I don't know if you make it, but it's quite thick compared to how thin this is. But it can be done. Just going to take it. Work it around there. But you can see the frustration, right? Once you get it, you're good. See? The same with this line here. I took a rubber mallet actually and I Gave it a couple whacks, very gently, on here, not on the line. Because this one does give a lot of trouble getting on there. It's tight. All right, let's straighten the suspension out. Now you got to jack up the suspension, and you jack it up pretty much till it's level. The idea, of course, is this helps if there's any play or anything like that within the suspension up above. It kind of pushes everything together, because the next thing you got to do is put that lead bolt in. So let's step all the way, and that's the main bolt in the back. Gotta drill that through. But first, let's lift up the control arm, situate the jack. If you want a guide point, you're basically jacking until this lines up. So I've gone a little too far. There. Now if you see it there, now we don't have to do that yet, but that's kind of your guide point. So now everything is here. You're checking around, making sure everything's nice and flush around here, flush around here. All these are nice and close together. And now you got to drill. So you need your 15, 30-second drill bit. And you got to drill through the back. The reason you got to do that, now you see that's where the old hole was that the suspension used to go through. Now that it's raised, you need to put a new hole in. You also got to make sure you're doing that at around ride height level, because that's why you're also raising up the car as well. Now I'll begin drilling, but I'm not going to do the whole thing for you because it takes long. It takes about 5 minutes to drill through, even with a good drill bit. I have a brand new stainless steel titanium bit, so it's made for drilling through this type of thing. However, it still takes a few minutes. It's fairly thick metal, not too thick, but you know, thick enough. But I'll tell you what I did. I started drilling from one side. I'll actually start from here when you watch it, and I go part way and then I go from the other side. One thing to caution with that, either you can just go all the way through. Do be careful, because if you're using, obviously you need a powerful enough drill to get through that. If it catches any of the metal or anything, the drill can catch. The drill bit stops, the body of the drill keeps going with your hand attached, and then you end up slamming into something, be it the fender, some metal component, anything like that. So be cautious when you're doing this. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to begin the drilling. I'm actually going to start on this side here. Put the drill bit through and start drilling. Almost through, but hey. So anyways, I'm going to continue on from here. It's really hard to drill the camera there, plus like I said, it takes quite some time. But it's just drilling all the way through, getting a clean hole all the way through. Almost in the clear. So now you take your bolt and washer, put it through, washer and nut on the other side. Alright, so the nut is rated at 5/8. Sorry, that's the bolt, my apologies. The nut is 11/16. So we're just gonna put one side on here. And that's the nut side there. This goes to 60 foot-pounds. Just in case you didn't hear, 60 foot-pounds. And now keeping in mind, of course, I have not dropped the car yet. It's still jacked up, the control arm. Now you just got to do your stabilizer link. And keeping in mind that it is now if you know what the torque specifications are, definitely leave it in the comments. If not, I just basically go hand tight plus about a quarter turn. So you just put your stabilizer link in. Make sure it's in all the way. There we go. We put our nut on. And now wrench. And Allen key. Sorry for blocking you there. Switch it around to here. Gives me a little more leverage. Okay, that plus another quarter turn. Oh. All right, and that is it. So now you can drop the car. Sorry, let me just zoom that back out. You can drop your suspension down. And now you just put your wheel back on. Again, go up to 100 foot-pounds. That's the rated torque for these cars. And after that, go for a test drive. Don't forget to do an alignment because doing these changes and everything could throw off the alignment of the car. So make sure you get that done as soon as possible. Now the YouTube stuff. I always love a great feedback, so make sure right off the bat to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Now, if you like something on the channel, definitely like it. Give it that thumbs up. If you disliked it, thumbs down for sure. But let me know why. That's what the comment section are for. And whatever it is, if you like something, then I know it's working. And if you dislike something, then I know something didn't. But let me know why, so I can continue to build a channel and make it better for me and for you. Aside from that, commenting is great too. So if there's something you can do better, something you can do different, any tips for other viewers, I'm all about that too. So make sure to put that in there. If you have a question about something that's maybe not even related directly to the video, leave that for me as well. Other than that, I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next video.